Over the weekend, Marvel began its attempt to pull itself back up by the bootstraps and start over again. Deadpool opened huge at the weekend box office. It made $444.3 million, making it the sixth biggest opening domestically and the biggest R-rated opening domestically. It opened to $211 million here. And this is just one of two major steps that they've taken to reinsert themselves as the number one force in movies and entertainment. I don't think it's going to work. The other one, of course, being that Robert Downey Jr. is back in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, except he is not back as Tony Stark. He is back as Victor Von Doom, as Dr. Doom.
Before we get into that, we have another 20 from Not That Jon Stewart. He just gave a few snaps for our cringe of the day. Anyway, moving on.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I expected Deadpool to do well at the box office, even though I hated it. I understand that there is a huge audience that really wanted to see that.
Yes.
And it was fan service at its best. Some people said that it was a desperate attempt to save the MCU while it's in a huge slump, and they did make inside jokes about that throughout the movie.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
To the people who are watching this in segment form, this happens during the live show when we reach a certain amount of super chats every episode.
Just so no one is confused.
I'm not cutting this out. This movie is the only openings higher than this were Spider-Man No Way Home, Avengers Infinity War, and Endgame, and then both The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens are the only movies that open higher than that.
It's all because of Taylor Swift.
Yes, that's
because
exactly what
everyone
happened.
thought there was going to be a cameo of Taylor Swift as Dazzler in this movie, but actually she posted about it on her Instagram story in a very inorganic, pandering fashion.
Can you imagine like having her money and still doing paid posts? I don't know if I actually buy that.
She ended that post saying, "Shout out to Wade Wilson, aka my god kid's sperm donor."
That part is definitely a paid promotion part because she would not.
I don't think she would ever write any of this, but she is friends with Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, so that makes sense.
The opening for Deadpool and Wolverine is similar to that of Multiverse of Madness. The difference here is that the word of mouth on Multiverse of Madness was way worse, and eventually it like dropped off a cliff in the second week. I think this movie hits $1 billion very, very easily. Multiverse of Madness fell just short. I think it was in the $900 million range, but it's going to make $1 billion, and it's going to make $1 billion very quickly. But that's not the biggest news here. The biggest news, what's going on right now, is that at Comic-Con, Marvel announced that they're scrapping Kang. They're getting rid of Kang Dynasty. I mean, you have no other choice. And they're doing Avengers Doomsday in 2026 and Avengers Secret Wars in 2027. And both of them will be directed once again by the Russo brothers and written by Stephen McFeely, who is one of the writers of both Infinity War and Endgame. And imagine having the last name McFeely in Hollywood. That's all I have to say.
It's
an unfortunate
His existence is a punchline.
But
yeah, those rumors about the Russo bros coming back were true.
Yep.
I think they prepped him for this. They prepped Robert Downey Jr. because they had to like wean him off of his malnourished vegan diet.
They're like, can you
got him on the creatine, the TRT. He's gonna need to beef up before he does this.
Yes.
I mean, I know he's not playing Iron Man anymore, but he was looking sickly for a while there.
Yeah.
I just saw a lot of people having negative reactions to this, saying that this is the worst thing ever, just because it's such a blatantly desperate move. It just reeks of desperation. But when you're desperate, what else are you supposed to do?
Well, you go back to what works, right?
Yeah.
That's the number one thing here. But the thing is, there are endless amount of talented, great actors that you could have gotten for this, but none of them would have gotten the reaction that Robert Downey Jr. did at Comic-Con.
Someone tweeted, the MCU is so dead that they're bringing back the guy who retired as the heartbeat and centerpiece of the franchise for 15 years to play a completely different character in the same universe. Horrible decision. Like, are people even going to be open to seeing him play a villain at this point?
They will.
Is
Look,
that what
it's very comic book-esque to do something like this, and I think
is it going to be addressed?
It'll likely be addressed as a variant. So they'll double down into the multiverse storyline. He'll be an evil Tony Stark variant. And it's going to come down to whether the Russo brothers can find a way to use that direction that they've been so good at for those films and re-inject some interest in the process. But I don't think it's possible, and I'll tell you why. Look, everybody loved Thanos, but the reason why everybody loves Thanos is that Thanos had to go up against great heroes that everybody cared about. Thanos was going up against Tony Stark, he was going up against Captain America, he was going up against Black Widow, the Hulk, Black Panther, all of these characters that had already built up a great following in the MCU, Thor, all these characters that people actually cared about. You wanted to see the good guys defeat the really, really charismatic bad guy. The problem here is like, okay, so you get a really, really charismatic actor like Robert Downey Jr. to come back to play, you know, Doctor Doom. That's great. So do I have to care about him going up against Captain Marvel? Do I have to care about him going up against Shang-Chi? Do I have to care about him going up against the Eternals? Like
the Young Avengers.
The young, like, or I guess, you know, Anthony, like, am I supposed to care about him going up against Falcon? I don't know. And like without character, you know, people loved Falcon. They don't care about him as Captain America. There just isn't that build of great heroes for them to use in this movie. I guess Spider-Man can come back. You can get Tom Holland back for those films, and he might be your anchor. Yeah, they can still use Tom Holland. They'll have to pay out the. I don't know I don't know how many films are left on that deal or whether they're licensing him back out. But they'll have to get him back. My guess would be they will pay an exorbitant amount to make sure that Tom Holland is in those movies because they need their own Tony Stark, and I can't think of another actor that they have to bring back that will elicit the same reaction.
Right.
And without those great heroes that everybody's built up a connection to over 3 phases, it all kind of falls flat and feels like a cheap marketing ploy that will have to be, once again, explained away by the multiverse.
A lot of people are just confused and they're like, what about Iron Man? Why did you do this? We don't want a Tony Stark variant. We just want him to be his original character or nothing. And you're right. It's just not going to translate well because there are no other characters that anyone cares about, because all of the original characters that people cared about were pushed out of the way to highlight. I
guess Deadpool can come back. Like you can bring Deadpool in, but even his sense of humor will not look the same when it's in a PG-13
True. How do you
team
even
up
do
film.
that?
It won't look the same way as it did before. I guess you could, again, Hugh Jackman, you're gonna do this till you're 90. You can try to get these guys back, but again, they had 50.
The joke is about Hugh Jackman, but in reality, it was about Robert Downey Jr. and there were all these jokes about Deadpool. You know, these breaking the fourth wall jokes about Deadpool saving Marvel and being the Marvel Jesus in this recent one. And now they have shown they actually are looking for Robert Downey Jr. to be Marvel Jesus, and it's not landing.
Yeah. Well, the thought outside of the really, really strong reaction, which, by the way, we'll show you guys. There was a lot of videos that came out of Comic-Con that showed this debut, so let's go ahead and watch.
He literally he holds his arms out
like Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's eliciting the same Tony Stark reaction. No, literally, no way. How are they going to make that? Here's the thing. Like, in Deadpool and Wolverine, there were a lot of cameos, and my point was that some of the movie, is, as much as I loved the film, it won't hit the same on second viewing because you've watched it. It's kind of in the same way, like a twist in an M. Night Shyamalan movie makes it, less interesting the second time around. When the effect of the cameos have worn off, does the movie have replay value? So this is a great reveal, and it gets a great reaction from people. But once that has worn off, you're going to have to build the character up and give Robert Downey Jr. great material to work with. And look, the guy who wrote Endgame and Infinity War is more than competent, and the Russo brothers are more than competent, but they had 15 years of backstory to build off of. Now we're not exactly restarting, but you've already admitted that Phase 4 was essentially a wash and nobody really cares about it. You've gotten rid rid of Kang. Nobody gives a crap. You've already had Deadpool point out that the multiverse has been a net negative for you. How do you expect to build up the same level of emotional resonance this time around as you did with 15 years of buildup to both Infinity War and Endgame? And I don't think you can.
Not to mention just the fact that all of their movies and TV shows look cheap now. Are you going to improve on all of those aspects?
Yeah.
Like the shitty script writing, the shitty CGI, the shitty costumes.
I mean, I don't think Deadpool and Wolverine looked awful. I thought
I'm not specifically talking about Deadpool
yeah.
and Wolverine, but all of their Phase 4 movies.
And again, if it's going to connect to a bunch of TV shows, like the Marvel, the hardcore Marvel fanboys will care. But
that's
once
who
you
was
get
in
to
that
the,
video,
but
right?
once you get to but once you get to the theaters, the people that went to see Deadpool and Wolverine, yeah, some of them might have watched Loki season 2 to understand the TVA, but the vast majority, I would guess, once you're getting to the $450 million mark, is that a lot of them were normies who saw Deadpool 1 and 2. Like Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman, loved the X-Men movies, but maybe aren't watching all the Disney Plus shows. That's an audience that you need to find and bring back. And I just don't think, I think the lack of new heroes is a bigger problem than finding a solution that is a great possible villain in Robert Downey Jr. Not to mention, it does feel weird to have them take the guy who was the heart of the first 3 phases and then turn him into a bad guy. I don't know if they're going to make him a variant. Is he going to be an evil Tony Stark variant? Is it just going to be a different character? The general confusion that people are feeling right now is a hurdle that they're going to have to address.
On another note, I know that Robert Downey Jr. has kind of a sketchy past with being difficult to work with. He had a lot of issues, behavioral issues.
Before Marvel, but yeah.
Yeah, but has he straightened out all the way?
Robert Downey Jr.?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Is he going to be reliable since they just had this nightmare happen with Jonathan Majors? They're probably trying to be careful about
it was a gamble.
Staking their whole reputation on one person.
It was a gamble when they hired him in 2008. I don't think you would see it. First of all, okay, so you hire...
Also, does it even make sense to hire him for this role when he's 60?
I'm literally picturing them backing up a gigantic money truck to his
how
house.
much money did they actually have to offer?
It's a gigantic semi of money that they just dumped into his house.
Yeah.
But okay, so in 2008, when you hire him, he's got the bad boy reputation. He's gone to jail. He's been in court, all this stuff. Fine. It's a bit of a gamble. But what they took the gamble on that time is this dude's charisma going to outweigh the possibility of, him being a problem down the line. Now, they don't know at that time that the MCU is going to become as big as it did. So it probably didn't feel like as much of a gamble, but it was a gamble. Now, in 2024, Jonathan Majors doesn't have the same, he didn't have the same cachet that he did, right? So that wasn't necessarily the same type of gamble. I mean, you've got 15 years with Robert Downey Jr. now being, he's been a spokesperson for Marvel. He does a lot of outreach. He goes to visit, he goes and sees sick kids in hospitals and stuff like that. I think there's more than enough evidence now that he's turned his life around that it wouldn't be seen as the same risk as somebody who had just recently, gotten over a bunch of bad behavior. How long do you wait until you assume that they've corrected their life?
So now he is replacing Kang as the big bad, but they didn't want to recast Kang with Robert Downey Jr.
Yes, though they could have.
They could have done that.
As Tropic Thunder tells you, they could have done that.
Yeah.
The dude playing another dude.
Allow him to do it.
Look, it's honestly, the funny thing is it was making those memes real where they take his character from Tropic Thunder and they put him on Black Panther's body. And they say there's only one way to save the MCU.
Yes.
It's basically the truth here. I think that there will be some nostalgia for this, and I think at the very least it will do good numbers. I don't think that they will do. I don't think you can recapture the magic that 15 years of well-received movies got you leading up to Avengers Endgame and Avengers Infinity War. Not to mention that the theater-going experience in general just isn't the same as it was back then.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.